So just allied to that, there was a phrase where you said, this is, quote, none of my business, and there was another phrase saying, quote, just letting you know. Is that consistent with what you and I have discussed a couple of times already, this compartmentalisation? You might be letting him know what's going on in your office in the sense of general information, but it was none of your business in the sense that you're not going to get involved in the processes of making any decisions or anything like that in relation to the issue. That's a matter for Mr Maguire to deal with through what you've described as the front door.
Absolutely. If there was a matter that had to be dealt with through the proper processes of government, it's not a matter that I would have involved myself with.
And so you might tell Mr Maguire what's going on. In this case, has Sarah made contact with you, etc.? They're concerned about you going overseas, etc.
Not always, but I would have made the same comment to any member of Parliament. If any member of Parliament had rung me to say they had a concern and they'd dealt with my office, I would have said, has my Chief of Staff rung you? Have you done X, Y, Z? I would have done that to any other member of Parliament.
But you'd have to agree that you're in a lot more regular contact with Mr Maguire.
Of course I was. Of course I was, but of course I was in a lot more regular contact. But it doesn't change how I would act in the execution of my public duties, and I want to make that very clear. My consistency in acting in relation to my public duties is of the highest standard, and Mr Robertson, I only wish that you could speak to all the public servants and colleagues that I deal with to know what a stickler I am to doing things the right way.
That's really what I was seeking to confirm with the last question. You've then given that longer answer. None of my business in the sense that I'm not going to get involved in the particular issue that you're raising, correct?
Because there was already a proper process which was taking care of that. And my assumption, as was the assumption at that stage, obviously, of Minister Blair and others, was this was about job losses.
I think we're in passionate agreement.
Well, thank you. If we're in passionate agreement, I'm happy.
I just want to be quite...
Berejiklian, if you thought it was inappropriate for Mr Maguire to go to China, why didn't you tell him while you were on the phone with him when he said, I'm going to go over there?
Because there was a proper process in place.
But why not just tell him, don't go? Because you're being stupid.
Because there was a proper process in place. And to be honest, I did not know the full extent of the issue and the matter at that stage.
Well, he pretty much described it. He said that the minister wasn't going to go over and deal with a specific issue, wasn't going to go to China and deal with a specific issue, so he was going to go. I take it you would have regarded that as an inappropriate trip for him to take, to raise a specific issue in China, which the minister thought it was inappropriate for him as a representative of the state to raise. So why didn't you tell him while he was on the phone?
Because I would have assumed perhaps I wasn't paying attention to it sufficiently, or perhaps I assumed my office would go through that process.
So I just want to be clear that we are in passionate agreement. Not necessarily agreement, but at least in me understanding what you've been seeking to explain. From time to time you would tell Mr Maguire what was going on, including what was going on in your office. For example, the call that we've heard.
I think
did Sarah call you, etc.?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a general statement to make. This is one out of thousands of conversations. So it was not I do not want to give the impression that was a frequent occurrence.
Not necessarily a regular thing, but it would at least happen on one occasion, perhaps more than one occasion. Is that right?
Potentially out of thousands of interactions.